I'm not gonna go much through this because all the principles are gonna be in the techniques that I'll be using in the DVD. So you guys will be able to pick it up from the techniques. But I just want to reinforce a little bit of the things. So when I fall, I want to fall in the position already. When he hugs me, I cannot just fall here. Because once I fall in that position, it's going to be really, really hard for me to get that arm back here. Right? So I want to, when he's hugging me, I want to be already position myself there. Or here, so he doesn't hug my head. Right? My wrist in front of his elbow joint and my hand in the back of his arm. Right? My elbow close here, so I can start hip scaping and escape of the side control. But if I don't land with this hand here, if I land with the hand here, this hand is not just like this, because I'm using both of my hands for the same thing. So I want to have this hand here act of something else. Block his hip. It's very important to block his hip so he doesn't go to my north-south. Because in case he tries on going to my north-south, please move. I'm taking my feet out of the mat so you guys can take a look that I'm not just pushing him. I'm just using it as a frame here. So I'm blocking his hip here with my thumb towards my head. Spin a little bit. Look how I'm taking my feet out of the mat just to show you guys that I'm not really pushing the guy here and stopping. But my frame blocks him in case he's rotating. So my body rotates as well. My hand here is not just staying there. I need to make him uncomfortable. I don't want to really push him away because by me pushing him away, sometimes the guy can just come back, you know. So my hand here, I'm using like my little bone here on my wrist to come exactly underneath. Even if you land high, you use your wrist back and hold his shoulder. Don't grab anything, you see. I just hold his shoulder. And now I'm going to use it like as a motorcycle and turn it on, right? Look at what happens. And I can keep walking with my hand. You see here? Now, stop there. Just take this hand out. Stop here, like you were. I created this much space. My knees feels good there. You see, I escape a little bit. My knees here is there. So all I want to do is create a little bit of space, and that's what we're going to try to do in all the moves. Always creating space so my hand, you know, create a little bit of space here. So my hand come in either here or my knee will come here. Or I'm going to turn. As you will see in many different ways of getting out of the side controls. Let's take a look on the techniques. This move can be also applied before my guard is passed. So learning this perfectly might save you from getting your guard passed on most of the times. My opponent has me in his side control, and I'm preventing him from getting head control by blocking his arm. My other arm is under his chin to keep him away. He has my hip blocked, and I can't hip escape away from him. Instead, I turn away from him by lifting his chin and stepping over with my foot. I bring my inside elbow under and tight to my body so I can roll over to the turtle position. Immediately, my outside leg stretches down alongside his body. I shoot my other knee underneath him and regain my guard. This should always be your first option to escape from side control. I'm in my partner's side control. My hand is open on his traps, and forearm or wrist, under his chin. My other arm is blocking his hip, with my elbow tucked in and the blade of my arm on his hip. I bring my feet tight to my butt, with my outside foot near my hip. I bridge high towards him and hip out sideways and away from him. Immediately, I swing my hips and knee underneath him and all the way to the other side. My knee is now on top of my arm so he doesn't push it down, and my wrist blade is still blocking his hip so he doesn't move to the north-south. I straighten my body out as I hug his arm, pulling it with me to prevent him from pushing on my knee. My outside foot goes over his leg to trap it. I hip escape one more time to free my leg and close the guard. This time, my opponent has his arm over my head and it's more difficult to bridge all the way towards him as he can run to my north-south. So I bridge straight up, and when I come down, I immediately slide my hand under his outside arm to get the underhook. I roll over onto my belly and bring my knees up tight to his leg. I grab his closer leg with both of my arms and pull his leg very tight to me with one arm behind his knee and the other pulling just above his ankle. I take him down as I break my hips back, then start to go for a double leg. With control of both legs, I drive forward and then inside control. Okay, so here I am in the bottom of north-south position. I grab his belt with both hands. Then I bring my knee up towards his head. In one motion, I'm going to push up with the belt grip and kick my legs down to scoot out from underneath him. With both arms extended, I'm going to choose a side and roll over that shoulder to put one of my hooks in. I release the grip on his belt and take his back. This was my favorite north-south defense as a lower belt. This time, my opponent is attacking the Kimura from the north-south position. This is a common attack from here. As soon as he starts to drive me onto my side, I'm going to swing my legs back, so my knee drives in under his arm and the other leg hooks his head. I can use my other hand to continue to control his wrist and get the armbar from here. If you can protect your arm and perfect your timing, you can surprise your partner with this amazing counter. Half guard. It's funny how most of the people say that this is a neutral position. When I'm in this situation here, the guy on bottom has a much better position than I do. I cannot attack him right now. With his shin blocking myself, it's hard for me to do any kind of move. He's like a step ahead of my game right now. I have to get to the neutral position, past the neutral position, and then start attacking the guy. So, how to control the half guard here? Before we control him, we need to make sure that we can get in the situation that I can attack him. So what I want to do here, I want to clear the knee, I want his back on the mat, and I want to be able to hug him. When I get in this position here, I need to understand the control. So he doesn't get to the same position again. My knee, always tight to him. No matter if it's here, or if my knee is close to his armpit. Has to be tight. So the guy doesn't come in with his elbow anymore. So I cut out the space, and I keep attacking him. Because if he gets the elbow here, it's not that we're in a neutral position. It's that he's going to get to the better position again. So, going again here, I want to hold his armpit and control his hip, making sure that his back is always on the mat. If the guy starts escaping to the side with his neck, I pull him. With his hip, just keep your hip a little bit to the side. Move your hip to the side. Then I have to go forward. And I get the control again. I'm going to teach you guys how to control, how to get to the control, and how to attack. So let's take a look at it. My partner is defending from the half guard with a knee shield and hands in good position. I put one hand in his hip and the other on the mat. My knee moves tight to him and my other foot steps up as far out as I can go. If he tries to hip escape, I can follow him by putting my knee on the mat. Now I sit back with my foot on the mat, close to his butt. Notice my other knee is going under his thigh and his hip are off the mat. I can start to control his head by reaching deeper to his opposite armpit and pulling him tight to me. I end in a good position to pass or attack. we're going to use the previous technique to start to attack. So here I am in a good control position. I push on his elbow as I drop my body down so I can hug his armpit. I immediately come back on top and pull him tight to me. My shoulder is applying pressure to his chin just to keep him distracted. I move my other arm tight against my body. Then I use my elbow to open his knee. I slide his leg down and lock my elbow over my knee. Notice my wrist is across his thigh. Now I put my hand down to the mat with my fingers pointing down towards my feet and slide my knee down to the mat. Notice that my frames made it impossible for him to trap my knee back in half guard. I underhook his arm and walk my hand up to open his arm. I bring my other arm around his head and use my elbow to make him look up and to the other side. This forces him to open his guard and let me pass. I am in a good position in the mount. This is a move that many people don't adjust it perfectly. I move into the position I explained in how to get the head control. This time, he has his elbow in tight and I can't open to underhook his arm. I grab inside my sleeve with 4 fingers. With the top hand, I make a fist and make sure my wrist is firm. It's very important that I now pull my bottom hand deeper underneath his neck to tighten the choke while I apply more pressure with my upper wrist. I posture up and squeeze to get the tap. This is one of the most important passes from the half guard. I get his back on the ground, just like we have done in all the previous techniques. I drive my arm deep underneath his arm and grip my hands together, palm to palm, palm hugging the head facing down. Now I dive my whole body forward and put my head on the mat near his. I open his arm up as I go. Notice I'm also up on my toes. I walk up as high as I can with my knees always squeezing his leg. Now I pull my knee close to my chest and drive it down to the mat on the opposite side. Then I will move my forehead to the mat on that side to push his head away from me. I control his arm by pulling up on the back of the tricep and locking it to my elbow. Now I slide my knee through. If my foot is still trapped, I block his knee with the top part of my foot, and with the bottom part of the other foot, I'll dig until I can curl my toes on his hamstring to push up. Then pull my other foot out and move to side control. I'm going to show a different way to control your partner here. I turn away from him and immediately push my hip forward towards his top leg. Then bring my knee tight to his hip. My other knee is up and my hands are gripped together. I have pressure on his hips here, so it's difficult for him to move. This is a great move to do against good half-guard players. I control the side like I just showed in the previous technique. I control his gi at the hip and I hip out towards his head until I can free my knee. Now, I grip his belt or gi at the pants and reach in with my other hand to grab my own foot. Cupping the bottom of my foot, I pull my foot out. I let go of my foot and control his gi at the knee. Since my back is blocking his vision, I grab my foot again and step over him, and then in mount. This time, when I try to control his hips, like the previous techniques, he blocks me by pushing on my hips. I bring my hand in tight to his leg, and I reach under his top leg and cup over his lower leg. My other hand applies pressure sideways on his knee so he doesn't move his knee out of there. Then I'll turn my body to the side, and as I come back, apply pressure with my belly button on top of his knee to smash his leg down and partially open his lock. I grab his collar and sprawl out onto my hip. Now I kick my leg back to free it. I keep pressure on him using my head and the grip on his leg to drive them back and move into side control. Here's a version of the previous technique when my opponent pushes on my head. This time, after I free my trapped foot, he keeps pushing on my head to prevent me from moving to side control. I keep putting pressure on his knee on the far side and post my hand on the mat. In one motion, I move my weight forward and jump to the other side, so I'm in side control on the opposite side. This is an excellent technique to do against stronger opponents. I reach under his top leg and cup the top of his lower leg above the knee. This time, his knee is too wide and I can't use my body to push it down. I base out away from him on my hand and knee. My other leg stretches back and to the other side, and I turn back into him while lifting my foot up so I can hook his chin to clear his lock. Immediately, I slide my knee to his hip. I control his knee and continue to hip up towards his head and open his arm. I grab my foot and easily step over into the mount. Side control top is one of the positions that the smaller guys most have a hard time with it. When I'm in this position here, I don't want to go straight and like hug his neck. He has his frames well on my throat, on my hip, right? And I want to be able to defeat that, to go to a more comfortable position for me before I'm attacking him without having a chance of escaping. So before me doing that, I want to make sure that this arm is always trapped, right? So he doesn't roll to that side and go to the turtle position. But I also want to make sure that his legs are on the side, because most of the times the guy on side control, he's trying to hip escape. You see, so his hip escapes inside. I need to make sure that he's gonna turn to this side here. Just come a little bit more this way. I need to make sure that he's gonna be to that side, so I can start controlling the head very high, right? So not in the middle here. I wanna go here. Look, tight. My knee not only on his hip, but inside of his legs. Putting the pressure here. Look. When the guy escapes his hip, you're gonna stop here, not gonna keep hip escaping. So when the guy escapes his hips this way towards me, all I have to do is to put my knee deeper. And the more I go, the more I'm turning his hip. So we can hip escape again. Look, he's always connected. I'm always pulling this, and I keep on turning his hip. Then my hand can control his leg. You see, I control his leg. My arms come in. You see, it's tied to me at the beginning. Look, it's on his back. Tied to me. Come in, and I go right here. Not here, otherwise he has the hand. And he has the control of my own arm. So I want to make sure that I want to bring it to me. Slide as I go to the other side. This is a very comfortable position for me. I have him trapped. And even if he's here, I'm still in a good position. I can always push his leg and keep going to almost as a north-south, but a more controlled position in the side control. What I like to do from here, but that's like personal, is to lift this knee, because most of the times I'm forcing here, the guy escape his hip in, and my knee goes all the way to his belly right away. You see, so I'm already a few steps away ahead of him. I already know what he wants, and I'm just gonna be waiting for him to the best attack. So in the attack position, I'm trapping his arm. He doesn't roll. He starts going to that side. Go to that side. I need to make sure that I'm not coming with him, but my hips are always going low. Look, I go low and then position myself. If my knee comes here, I'm just gonna wait for him, or do a little bit of attacks that we'll see in the coming techniques. Let's take a look at it. In this example, my partner gets the underhook. It's very common for your opponent to try to get the underhook and turn towards you to escape side control, and maybe even go for a single leg or double leg takedown. When my opponent gets the underhook and breaks towards me, I start to lose my side control. So I accept the movement and immediately wither his arm. I use my other hand to control his head by applying pressure to the top and back of his head. Now, I can get my other hand deep behind his neck to control him. I move the hand that was on his head and post it on the mat behind his back to help me rotate around to the opposite side. I spin around him as I straighten the hand controlling his neck, putting my palm on the ground and once again ending on side control. This is also a great drill you can practice with a partner. I have my partner in side control and I'm controlling his head. The first thing I'm going to do is switch my base and block his hip with my opposite knee. My other foot is on the ground, so I have a solid base. I'm going to push his knee in and trap it between my neck and shoulder. Now I can reach down and pull his foot off of my leg so I can come up and hook his ankle to trap it at my knee joint. I reach over his leg and cup the back of his knee and pull his legs to me. Now I drive my hips forward and pull his trapped leg back with my leg. I step over his leg and my arm to end in the perfect mount position. This is the perfect attack, from beginners to black belt. My partner is in a defensive position in my side control. I'm going to go through the arm he has across my neck and cup his triceps. I open his elbow and move my head out. I put my head underneath and pin his wrist to the ground. It's important to reach underneath his elbow and grab my own wrist with a monkey grip, no thumb. I push his hand down as I pull his elbow up and sit back to pull him to me. Now I pass my leg over and pull his elbow up to me and rotate towards the back of his head to get the tap. This was my favorite side control attack as a blue belt, even though adjustments were made later. It's the same setup as the last technique. I start to attack the Kimura. This time, he grabs his belt and prevents me from rotating his arm back. As soon as I see he's going to try this defense, I rotate my hips very low around him and my foot will hook under his shoulder as I sit back. From here, I can lay back and finish the armbar. Just like the previous technique, he defends by grabbing his belt. This time, when I sit back to get the armbar, I can't break his grip. I go back on top like I'm going to attack the Kimura again. I reach through and grab his wrist. I used my other hand to pull up the bottom of his gi and I feed it to the opposite hand to keep trapping his wrist. I reach deep in and grip his opposite collar with the thumb in. As I step up, I move my knee back behind him and apply pressure across his neck with my wrist firm. I lift his elbow with my other grip so he can't turn back into me and I get the tap. From side control, I put my hand on his hip and use my wrist and forearm to control his leg. With my arm blocking his leg, I can slide my knee on his belly. My other foot is flat on the ground and is aligned to his head. My knee goes all the way across his body until my foot is hooking his side. So all my weight is on his belly here. I sit back over my ankle, so if he hip escapes from this position, the worst thing that can happen is I end up back in side control. I get my knee on his belly as we just described in the previous technique. I get the underhook on his arm and pull myself tight to him. I clasp my hands together in a gable grip. I stretch my outside leg back and knee up all the way under his armpit to control his arm. I drive my head towards the mat to then open his other arm. I slide my leg up before I go to the mount, so he doesn't trap my leg. Now I move to the mount and keep my feet squeezing his sides with my toes on the mat. I'm in a perfect position to set up a number of attacks. Okay, it's the same setup to get the knee on the belly as the previous techniques. This time, he starts to push on my knee. I underhook his tricep and cup it with my hand. I can use my elbow to chicken wing his arm open if he keeps his hand on my knee. I pull his arm in tight to me. My other hand posts on the mat near his head. In one movement, I pivot directly over his head and grab his gi at the knee to keep him from escaping. Notice my foot always underhooks his shoulder when it's not across his body. I sit back, squeeze my knees together, and raise my hips with his thumb up to get the submission. This technique is one of the most effective submission setups against black belts. I use a slight different setup for this attack. I slide my knee in towards his hip, then up and under his arm. I have head control with one arm, and my other hand control his legs near the hip. I'm way up high in side control now, so I have lots of space to bring my knee up. My opponent wants to get his hand on my knee and start to escape his hip. I grab his wrist, pull it towards me, and pin it to his stomach. I fold my leg tight against his body and fall back as I pull his head and throw the other leg over his shoulder, locking the triangle. I bridge back onto my shoulders and lift my hips high. Now I use both hands on the back of his bicep to push his bicep towards his chin. Now I pull him to me with my legs and make sure his arm is trapped tight against my stomach. With my outside arm, I trap his arm and grab my knee. With the other hand, I grab my shin and post my foot on his hips to adjust my angle so I can make the triangle tighter. I reach all the way around with my outside knee with one hand and around his head with the other hand. Now I squeeze everything together and lift my hips to get the tap. This is the most effective knee on the belly escape. My partner has his knee on my belly. I cup his heel. The other hand goes to the outside of his knee. To escape, I bridge up, and as I'm coming down, I twist his knee to the inside and his heel to the outside. I bring my legs close to his legs to trap his heel. I reach under his arm and get the underhook. My other elbow posts on the mat. I end in a good position with the option of taking his back. I'm not gonna go much into the half car because I already have a whole DVD dedicated to this subject. What I want to mention to you guys here and make sure you guys get it is the key points of this. When I have him on my half car, I first have to make sure that his leg is going to be in half car, and then I'm gonna control that leg. So my leg it can't be just with my foot in, has to be my whole knee. You see, but I don't want to skew this way here to put my whole knee there. I want to just shoot my knee as most as I can and keep, you can sit down, and pull and keep my heel towards my butt the whole time. Look, you see the whole time here. Then my other leg has to go across his belly here, but I need to make sure that I'm going to be on my side, because if I'm like this, it doesn't go across. So I need to make sure that I'm here, hooking with my instep, his belly. So I have a control here, and I can take my time up to the point that I'm gonna cross my feet. When I cross my feet, I have to make sure that I'm not gonna cross over the bottom of my heel, but in my other instep. If I cross over like this, it has no pressure. He can push my leg, and I can push him, because this leg is actually pushing the hook out, which I should be actually pushing my knee in. So I have to have this leg on top to make sure that I have this kind of pressure here. If the guy is coming tight, I can push with him, I can stretch my body, and my lock doesn't unlock there. Don't go over your feet here, but heel on top of the instep, and make sure that you have the control of the guy before you make any attack. Right, that I have this perfect distance, you see, and my knee stays there. So do not put your back on the ground. Let's take a look at the techniques so you guys can get a better understanding. Let's look at how to recover your guard. My partner has me flat on my back with head control. This is not good for me. I have my forearm under his chin with my hand open on his straps. I hip out and tuck my other elbow inside of his knee. I can now use my wrist to open his knee. This gives me enough space to bring my knee up and inside his thigh. At the same time, I plant my opposite foot over his leg. I use this space to scoop my hips back to the other side. Now I stretch my upper body back and control his arm to keep him from pushing on my knee. I pull my foot out and regain my guard. This was my go-to move against bigger guys when I was a blue belt. I'm in a good position with my knee shield. I'm blocking his arm from getting head control. I bring my leg up and hook the back of his shoulder to bring him forward. As he reacts by posturing up, I shook my leg back, and my arms follow underneath his arm. I immediately grab as deep across his back as I pull him very tight to me with my shoulder underneath his armpit, pinching my shoulder forward so he's not able to overhook my arm. My other elbow is on the mat. I come up on my knee and look away from him. I shake him forward and move to the back. The setup is just like the technique before, but this time he gets the overhook or whizzer on me. I reach in and grab his gi at the knee, and I close my other elbow tight to trap his arm. I push forward into him with my upper body, then I move my hip underneath him, put my back on the mat and sweep him over the top. I can use my grip on his knee to help roll him over and end in the top position. Caio is going to demonstrate this technique as he has surprised me with it. I have good head control here, and he can't get his forearm under my chin. He reaches down and grabs my gi below the knee. His other hand reaches over my back and grabs my gi at the opposite shoulder. Then he loads me on top of him as he rolls his hips away from me and in one movement bridges back the opposite way to get the sweep.